Hi, I'm Raymond Chen. I'm a recent graduate from DePaul University with a computer science master's degree, and one of my hobbies is to make games. And what you're seeing right now is one of my first project ever that I made as a multiplayer games. And so this project here is called Project Haven, which is essentially a remake and redesign of this game, which is called Haven. So it's like kind of modification of previous it's just not another iterations of this game because I'm deciding to remake the entire game for several purposes, which I'll go over a little bit later. So a little bit about what this game was originally. So this is Project Haven. The Haven is a top-down 2D games, multiplayer, and with three factions going against each other, depending on the setting and setup. And this mode, what you're seeing right now, is a PvP mode, and basically character from three factions shooting at each other, like fighting each other, and till one of the team comes on top. So go over. So there's three objectives for the remake, which I would call the Project Haven, is to first redesign and remake the Haven. So there are some issues with the original Haven. It is has some design issues. It doesn't really focus on what this game should have. That all of the qualities like um, one. So one of the drawbacks of this game is that once you play it for a couple of 10 or half an hour, you get bored because it's very repetitive and some balancing issues aren't very well done. So one of the objectives is to redesign on top of the remake the Haven. So it's not going to be just a simple remaster or doing another iterations on the previous version. Another second objective, finish Haven. So what the problem with Haven is that it got stuck in a development bottleneck, due to development code issues and other issues. So there are some features I wouldn't be able to do until maybe rewrite everything. So another objective for Project Haven, which is second Haven, is to complete what I originally planned but weren't able to make. Give me a second here. All right. And the third objective is to rewrite the code base, which is very obvious for the sake of, you know, future features, um, to basically get past the bottleneck. So one of the problem with the original Haven is that the code base was a little haphazard, and back then when I developed my first Haven projects, I didn't quite use some of the programming principles or um, design patterns or any of that. So yeah, it looks not really pretty back then. Right. Like I said, I'll go over a little bit already. And core feature is a 2D top-down, and I'm not gonna do 3D because I don't. I want to keep the project like within scope. And another feature is a three faction opposition, a PvP mode, and campaign, basically co-op mode. It's not gonna be like campaign like super hours long campaign. It's just gonna be like one map and then several objectives, and you and other players play on one side instead of like PvP. You could play on different sides and playing with AI and such. So that's very simple features for Haven. So the reason why I logged this instead of like just going on my own and coast things and probably or whatever is to, for one thing, keep record of things and review those recordings later on down the line and see how I did earlier versus how I become later on. I don't know how I would become, but yeah. Second thing is to break down my thought process by speaking out loud and speaking not directly to myself, to whoever is watching right now, um, is one way for me to really look into my project and kind of zoom out and think in a bigger picture in the shoes of others, in the shoes of someone who doesn't know the projects. And the third objective, which is very important to me, is to avoid self-burnout, because one of the thing I love to do is to kind of going fast and programming. You know, when you're like a indie developer, especially on your own, you don't have anyone to keep you in check. You can go in all directions all you want. Plus that I'm both an artist and a programmer, so I know without any directions I could or like without a principle or a rule that keep me from being over ambitious, I get to do things one step at a time instead of like going all directions, which is bad overall. So yeah, so what I have for the current project, so what I did before this development at DeVLog, I already did something, which is not really hasn't had anything to do with the game yet. So I have a lobby to see. So back in Haven, I kind of borrowed the lobby template from the Unity visual, and the reason why I want to make it my own this time is that I don't because when you're using someone else's template and you need to change something, it's hard to see everything at once because you already take it for granted, like without writing things yourself. And it's probably just me. I don't want like the lobby templates doing something behind my back and without me knowing. So that also lobby isn't that hard, so I decided to make my own lobby. Also, at some of these like server parameters, because it's a multiplayer game, so server parameters, I need to link it to the actual scene. So the lobby system, you know, it need to be reworked. And another things I have, I'm gonna show it here. No, having a little fevers. Hopefully, my voice won't crack or something. So this is a current state. There's nothing fancy. It's just the basic lobby setup. I'm put so I'm gonna focus on just the server client. I'm not gonna do hosting or single player mechanics. It's purely gonna be multiplayer. Um, yeah, dedicated client. So this is what I have, and once you click ready on one side, and then if all the players continue and you get to start a game, you could also click on ready, and that will reset the countdown, and or just a little additions details. Um, yeah, once you started, then the game starts. It goes to whatever map that's set previously, and the countdown will lock the player's interface too. Yeah, nothing fancy. Like I said, it's just basic synchronizations and this. Yeah. So just a little details. I didn't use the Unity's network transfer. The reason for that is I want to be able to actually push other players around instead of like, okay, it's locked in place because the server tells you that's players right there and you can't move it. So I just yeah, the recording just broke. It stopped for some reason. So anyway, back in the so what I shown earlier is basically that. It's basic lobby and basic synchronization or netcode. Nothing like no combats yet. It's just moving and such. So for the first milestone, I'm thinking of is to do the PvP mode first and complete the match cycle. So once one faction wins, and then the games go back to lobby. And also doing the AI. Already have some of the AI codes from either the original Haven or my latest projects, other projects that I have the AI code for. So I'm not gonna completely write the AI from a draft, because I'm thinking I can borrow something. And just one basic character for each faction, so no character selection. Once you choose that faction, you spawn as that one character. And also 2 weapons in total, just a way to like test the inventory system and like test that a different weapon works differently on the netcodes. So yeah, that's pretty much for milestone 1, and I haven't figured out where milestone 2 is, because I want to complete this thing first before I know where to go next. Possibly I will say do the co-op. So what I'm thinking is doing the co-op modes and the PvP modes. It's just different maps, but each map has its own setup, so the server doesn't know what a map, what mode is going to until it loads up the map, and the map tells the server, okay, what kind of map this is. So in that way, I could like have the freedom to develop more modes in the future, and if there is any. Yeah, so that's pretty much for this devlog today, and I'm just gonna do this is just an introduction to my projects and what's going on, and I haven't actually gone into the devlog yet. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.